The following is a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
Welcome to the System is Down.
Guess who's back? Back again. It is, of course, the least comfortable show on the web. The System is Down. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the show. The show that makes you go, ugh. Show that makes you uncomfortable, even though you shouldn't be. We don't talk about anything that I think is too outrageous on this show. Mostly because I take comfort in all the discomfort. But if you're new here, welcome to the show. This is the place where we talk about all the uncomfortable topics, things like conspiracies, politics, and religion. Things that make you uncomfortable, make normal people uncomfortable, one of which I am not. But welcome to the show. If this is your first time, go find the person who invited you, give him a big #MeToo, kiss on the mouth, and slap on the rear from you and me, because I love you being here, and I know that you're going to love being here, because today's episode is a fun one. It is my conversation with my new friends, Nick and Lizzie Pecone from the Sounds Like Liberty podcast, and Nick also does a bunch of other podcasts. One of them includes the Introverted Musician, I think it's called, the Introvert Musician, or the Introvert, something like that. He's got a lot of them, but that's one of the main ones that is relevant to today's conversation, and it was a fun conversation, one where we talked about primarily being introverts and doing like performance art. I guess not performance art, but like performing on stage, doing art in front of people in uncomfortable ways, and how that changes your mindset and how that helps you evolve in doing podcasting, talking to people, forcing yourself to talk to people, how that changes your introversion. And it might be a surprise to you, but I am quite the introverted individual. And when I first started doing music, my family was like, and people from my school, and everybody was like, what the hell is this? Like, I've never heard him speak, but I just heard him scream on stage. So it's a conversation that I think is going to be a fun one for especially all y'all dark basement-dwelling individuals, which, you know, this is a weird, uncomfortable conspiracy type podcast, so there's probably a lot of introverts out there that spend a lot of their time in dark rooms searching things and researching on the internet about strange phenomena and such. But yeah, anyway, we're going to get into that here in just a second. But before we do, I got to remind you guys about the Downers Club. The Downers Club is, of course, our patron program that helps keep the show growing and getting bigger and better, and gives you the opportunity to get bonus episodes of the show, video and audio versions, every single week. And, you know, we do all sorts of things. A lot of times we'll do extended interviews. We'll do Legions of Liberty Doom with a bunch of other liberty-minded podcasters. We'll do all sorts of stuff. Tons of stuff. Movie reviews. We're talking about doing music reviews with a music guy soon who's been on the show. You could probably guess who it is. It's not Nick Pecone. It's one of the other guys. You do your guessing, but maybe it will be Nick Pecone over time. Who knows? It's constantly growing and evolving, and I'm trying to work in new things to keep the bonus shows fresh and keep you guys having more and more entertainment for your greedy little ears every single week. So consider, if you like what you hear here and you want to hear more, consider going over to patreon.com/The System is Down and signing up for as little as $5 a month. That's like nothing. That's like a cup of coffee a month. Probably less than a cup of coffee if you're going to Starbucks and getting the venti or whatever. But yeah, you know, just go check it out. Go check it out. You can sign up. You can pay $5, get in, check it out. You can listen to it all, and you might be able to listen to it all in a month if you had nothing better to do. Probably not, because there's so much in there. Our entire backlog you will get, and everything going into the future if you stay in. But if you sign up and you listen to it and you don't like it, you can peace out the next month, and you're only out your one cup of coffee, which you probably normally spend in a day. So try it out, support the show, and I'll love you forever. More announcements coming up after the show, but I'll save those because we want to get into the meat and potatoes of why you're here, which is my conversation with Nick and Lizzie Pecone from the Sounds Like Liberty podcast and all of Nick's other podcasts and his music and all that stuff. So let's do it right now, ladies and gentlemen. let's get weird. All right, my guests today are Nick and Lizzie Pecone from Sounds Like Liberty, This Week in Liber Pods, and introvert musician, and probably a million others. Nick, Lizzie, how are you guys doing?
All right.
We're doing okay.
Yep.
Good.
Awake.
Yeah, wide awake on this beautiful Wednesday morning. Guys, I wanted to have you on. I was going to say, we typically talk about uncomfortable conversations here, and this isn't necessarily your most uncomfortable, but if you are an introvert, then, any conversation could technically be qualified under the uncomfortable category, so I'd say we're good. So let me get, before we get into the topic, let me get a little bit of background on you guys, and just your individual upbringings, even before you met each other. Like, what was your background and your history? Nick, we'll start with you, or Liz.
Okay.
Whoever's more awake can go ahead.
Liz is definitely more awake. Why don't you start, honey?
I'm 2 cups of coffee deep. Does that count?
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in kind of a churchy, conservative. My parents are Republicans. They're ex-military, like that kind of family, except for my mom is kind of a think outside the box person. So when my parents split up, she decided she was going to homeschool us by herself.
Nice.
Yeah. And
Go mom.
yeah, so she is a good mom. She's amazing and inspiring. But all sorts of craziness ensued and hijinks and
Sure.
that sort of thing. So I grew up in Texas and came up to Ohio because my grandparents got sick, and we just kind of got stuck here, as happens with most people who come to Cleveland, I feel. And yeah, there you go.
Cool. Nick?
Yeah.
I grew up lower middle class in upstate New York. Went to college in Pennsylvania. And ended up in Ohio chasing a band. So
Chasing a band as in you were trying to get into a band, or just following a band around?
Well, no, I was in a band in Ohio, and so I decided to schedule electrical school out here because college didn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Coincidentally, I was placed on a job before I graduated.
Yeah. So you guys are you're married, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
How did you guys what's a little bit of your story? How you guys came to find each other? As I've heard, you're both you were at least very introverted. How do 2 introverts find each other in any capacity in this day and age?
Well, I was in a fuck it, let's make some bad decisions sort of mind frame because my marriage ended and I was going to bars and doing stuff I'd never done before. Went to an
You were in
open
a
mic.
let's make bad decisions. So you hooked up with Nick, right?
Well, this was down the
Perhaps
road.
the baddest of decisions.
But decided to play an open mic, except for I couldn't actually play anything. So this guy was there and he could play guitar. So I thought maybe I could sweet talk him into playing for me.
She's drastically oversimplifying that because she'd never met me before. She just was asking around to see if anyone there knew how to play guitar and was willing to play guitar.
Pretty much. And a friend of mine was like, go ask that guy. He seems, he's cute.
And the reason your friend said that was because a friend of ours said, "Oh, ask Nick. He'll do anything. Whatever. He didn't give a shit."
Nick's a whore. He'll do it.
Yeah, basically, I will own it.
He might marry you too if you ask nice enough.
And I was like, "Oh, who's this older black lady talking to me? I always wanted to fuck a black lady. We should see if we can chase this down."
Still kills me.
And so nothing happened. I played guitar for her. I got her email, and literally nothing happened
I think
for
we saw
a
each other on
year.
Facebook every now and then. Like, that was about it.
Yeah, we were both too shy to act on anything.
Yes. And then eventually you asked me when I was going to ask you out.
I'll take your word for
So
it.
I did.
As introverts do.
Yes.
Yeah. We wait until literally it's the most awkward it could possibly be.
Yes.
And then force more awkwardness.
Right.
Yeah, that's how we roll.
And then had the most awkward of first dates ever, so.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we didn't do what we were actually supposed to
We were
do.
supposed to go to the art museum, which apparently would have ended in him, like, talking shit on all the art and me dumping him. So it's good that didn't turn out that way, because as it was,
Yeah,
we
we-
ended up talking
we-
about music.
We eventually went on that date like a year into our relationship.
I was
and
like, this is a total crap date.
he's a piece of shit. He fucking just talks crap on every piece of art in his building.
I would have hated this person.
Yeah,
at the
she likes to
time.
go and be introspective and look at stuff. I like to go and just
Oh, well,
crack
that looks
jokes
dumb.
at everything that's in the building. Now, bear in mind, I've almost been kicked out of the art museum more than once.
Because you want to touch things.
I do like to touch things. I don't care that they've been there for 10,000 years.
Nice. So, and the rest is history. I take
And
it.
the rest is history, yes.
Well, the rest
Very
is
nice.
you knock somebody up and you got to do right by them.
You don't have a choice because she
That's
was raised
like
religious.
Tale
so-
as old as time, right?
Technically, I'm raised religious too. I'm one of
there you
those
go.
dirty Catholics, but
You got that. You both have that deep-seated guilt in you, right?
Right, yeah.
I'm a
layers
recovering Catholic, as they put it.
So, out of curiosity, where do you guys stand on like religion now? Are you still into it?
I still have I still have beliefs, spiritual beliefs. I'm not really big into like the whole church thing and
Well, you should probably bear in, so if you didn't catch earlier, this is Liz's second marriage.
yeah.
Right.
Because at 17, she was forced into a marriage by the church she was a part of, and
Sweet.
Yeah.
Great way
yeah.
to start. Match made in heaven, literally.
so her position on marriage or on religion is
Well,
shaded by the fact
yeah.
that it was not a very positive experience
Sure.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And it's not even like it was just the church you're part of, because the guy that she was originally married to, literally his whole life was church, all youth groups, and trying to start a ministry and all that
Yeah.
stuff. It's all weird to me to hear, honestly.
Yeah, and he straight up told me, okay, you're going to go to hell if we don't stay together. So, at that point I was like, well, okay, fuck it then.
Right. What do you got to lose? Just marry Nick at that point. I mean,
For me, I personally am not a big fan of religion because I see a lot of evil that gets perpetrated under it.
sure.
I wish we could all just have the same rules, and people don't really like that. So
Sure.
Yeah.
So, Nick, do you have any spiritual leanings of any kind, even outside of like, founded religions or anything?
well, I mean, for me, it's a silly question, and the big thing I've always
Oh, well, then I'll
I've
take it
always
back.
I've always said to Liz is if there is something there, it's impossible for me to know,
Sure.
and me wasting time trying to contemplate it isn't serving me any purpose. I will do what I can to be the best person I can be, and if it's not enough whenever I get where I get, then that's their problem, not mine.
Then you'll see Lizzie in hell, right?
I mean, I'm hoping I'm
I'll
not.
probably be too preoccupied
hoping
with
that's
pun-
the way
I'll be-
way it works.
I'll be too preoccupied with punishment for it to matter.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Well, you guys are both kind of a introverty background, as we've touched on. Liz, do you do anything in like the arts and music now, or just the podcast for the most part?
The podcast right now, I'm trying to get some freelance stuff going. But like I've always been very like, okay, let's pick something and then figure out what the right answers are and do that.
Sure.
And there aren't any right answers when you're freelancing, so I'm still kind of working my way into that.
I hear you. Yeah. So, what kind of art do you do for the freelance stuff?
Oh, I am actually really into fashion history, and that sort of thing. So I would love to do something in the stylist sort of realm, and also just doing research about historical dress. It's stuff that I do in my free time anyway, and if I could find a way to make it useful to people, then I guess that's my aim.
Nice. And Nick, you are a stage performer and musician. How long you been doing that for?
Oh God, let's see, 21 years, little more maybe now.
Yeah.
Professionally at least. I've always performed, in school and stuff. I was always in band and choir and things of that nature. But as far as like literally the first show I ever got money for, I was still in high school. So
Nice. Very cool. All right, yeah, and you, like I said, you host the Introverted Musician podcast as well, and that of all the millions of podcasts that you host, that's the one that piqued my interest probably the most, just because I can certainly relate to, wanting to always having the desire to perform your art and play music and stuff like that, and always having social anxieties and things that you have to eventually, over long periods of time, force yourself out of, which I am still working on. But
what was interesting about it was part of the thing that inspired me to do it was the fact that you probably don't remember this, but when we first when we were doing the show, and shortly before we got picked up by Launchpad Media, we had you on as a guest.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you remember how much Lizzie talked back then on the show.
Not very much.
I was pretty
You
sure
remember
she
her
was
being
there.
on the show.
You said she was there, and I think she said hi, and that might be it.
Yeah, that might have been about it.
Well, and it was worse about probably 3 or 4 months before that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it was watching the change that happened in her. Like, I had a lot of changes when I got into libertarianism because it kind of pushed me to... It was basically a self-help program in a lot of ways. You know, taking responsibility for yourself forces you to be better about stuff and perhaps value yourself in a different way. But when I saw that change happen to somebody else over the course of doing the show, I tell people when we first started Sounds Like Liberty, Liz couldn't call my sister up to schedule a play date.
Right.
Because she just have too many feelings and emotions about it. And, a year later, she was talking to complete strangers from homeschool collectives and booking play dates.
This is
Nice.
true.
Things that were huge mental hurdles for her were no longer hurdles for her. And I wanted to take what I'd learned with her going over that journey and actually seeing somebody else do what I'd done already as far as, learning how to go out and cope with people. It was just trying to take that and make it something that other people could find useful, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. And did
I
you
mean,
have...
a lot of people assume because I do perform, oh, you must just love attention and you
Right.
love being in front of people, and it's like, well, no, it's a skill that I learned when I was a kid, and it pays fairly well if you can do it. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to
Absolutely.
do that.
Yeah. Nick, do you remember your first performance on stage and the range of emotions and reactions that you received from friends and family?
Probably not. I mean, my family was always incredibly supportive, which has caused bigger ripples actually later in life, because my parents question a lot. I spent a lot of time questioning my life choices, but especially even with the performance. Like I make a fair amount of my income performing music,
Yeah.
and they somehow have it in their belief that I'm still struggling trying to make it. And explaining to them, no, it's just I have this skill set and I can make money doing it.
Right.
They've become incredibly less supportive as an adult, now that I have a kid. I think they just rather I went and became a lineman and started working for the electrical company and just give up on any desire to have a personality.
Right.
Just make money for your kid. And like, okay.
Think
then
about
she
the
can watch me
legacy
do-
you'll leave behind if you have money and are miserable. Think of how that
and
will
I'm like,
impact your kids.
I have to question whether my dad forgets any of those 3 a.m. calls of me saying, hey, I want to kill myself. Like, do you forget those?
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, I had a conversation with them early on when Irma was younger. And I just said, if this is what, helps him to function, then I'm totally supportive of it,
Yeah.
The bills get paid and he's here for us. Like,
Sure.
I can't really complain about
But
it.
it's not, I guess that's the thing. It's like, to me, I look at it as a part-time job. It's a way to make extra money. It's the only hustle I know. I
Yeah.
don't have a bunch of other skills that are monetizable the way that is.
Right? At least not ones that are unique to you. There are other ones that other people could do, but that's something that, it's your passion. So even if it wasn't making money, do it. And it's making money. So
Yeah, no, really, at this point, it's just a way to make money. I can always make music in my basement, and no one ever has to hear it. So, like, I have plenty of ways for creative expression if I choose them.
Sure.
But yeah, like I said, the family was always incredibly supportive, less so as you get older because they want you to adult and stuff like that.
Right.
I don't know that I could pinpoint. Like, my entire childhood was a lot of being on stage, I feel like.
Gotcha.
The first time I remember, like, in my head, the first time I remember in my head was singing A Whole New World in front of my choir class just because I wanted to in school.
Yeah.
My grandmother has like memories of me when I was like 4 years old, getting up in front of a class and singing a Bon Jovi song
Nice.
because I just wanted to.
Yeah. So you, even though you were, had social anxieties and that type of thing, you were still comfortable in standing up and singing in front of people.
I don't think it's about comfort. I think it's about you just feel compelled to do something, whether or not it's comfortable. I mean,
Sure.
at the end of the day, there's certainly, like, I think I will say I think a lot of the introversion came later. You know,
Okay.
My teen years were perhaps. I think me being a smart person and being a little odd didn't quite manifest as objectively until later in life.
Sure.
You know, and when you're a kid, you're wonderfully oblivious to the fact that you're a weirdo, and then you become an adult and you become less oblivious to it.
Right.
So, and then
Then you're just like, oh God, I'm a weirdo.
and then a lot of it for me is just I've reached cantankerous old man state where I just don't care. Whatever, I'm
Yep.
weird. Deal with it, asshole.
Right on.
Now, Lizzie, for you, yours, you kind of maintained up until a year ago or so with the podcast and everything. These anxieties and everything. How can you talk through like how the podcast has impacted you and changed that a little bit?
Honestly, it was just a matter of routine. Like, routine is a huge thing for me, and I never realized it because we never had routine as kids.
Right.
It wasn't really something we could maintain. And then when I grew
Wait,
older...
you mean leaving all your possessions in Texas?
right.
And-
And then when I got older, I was in a situation where I just wasn't comfortable with anything. So again, creating like a routine based on my own desires, like manifesting my will in the world, there was like no way that was going to happen.
Sure.
And so...
I mean, it goes even deeper than like one of the things that when we first started dating that was obviously clear and that she pointed out to me is that she never had a sense of home ever in her life. It was
Yeah.
always moving from one place to another, if not from city to city, from apartment to apartment.
Yeah.
And home has always been an important thing to me. And so looking at the way that literally every part of her life was always up in the air the entire time, like
Right.
there was no hope of routine because there's just no normalcy.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
just every week having to know that I was going to have to talk to somebody and being able to like prepare myself for that. And,
Right.
Then afterwards people would say, oh, we had a good time on the podcast. Like, oh, people actually enjoyed talking to me. Holy
Right.
crap. That
As
really helped.
opposed to all of your experiences with talking being you sitting there questioning whether or not
Like whether or not it went well. Like I talked to that person in line at the grocery store. Do they hate me now? Did it work? What happened?
are they going to bomb the house?
Yeah. Do you think it's kind of like a self value and self worth type of thing where you don't have anything stable in your life and then you finally have something where you can kind of know and prepare and mentally get into a groove of the repetition and expressing yourself and people valuing that. Do you think that it has like boosted your confidence and your self worth?
I think that it has, and honestly, that's something that I'm a lot more conscious of now that we've got a kid, and I'm having to kind of be an example for her,
Yeah.
because I was just I've always been a make-do sort of person. Like, whatever the situation, even if I'm really uncomfortable, I'm just going to like, okay, smile through it. We're going to make this work,
Yep.
and just realizing how much I was having to deal with. It's really kind of opened my eyes now that I'm able to make decisions on my own to make life kind of the way that I want it to be.
Yeah. Has it been kind of the same for you, Nick, as far as like the stage performances as things, progress? Have you valued yourself more and has it helped you like through mental states?
This whole thing kind of snowballs. Like I said, a lot of it was the self-help element of finding libertarianism. And taking on a lot of the responsibility of my own life for myself, which also coincides with me reading Jason Stapleton, Cialdini's influence.
Yeah.
And Cialdini's influence literally like lit up in my brain. That was I think the final domino in that when you realize how insane the psychology of human beings is, there's literally like there's no reason to not be fearless in a lot of settings because human emotions and human psychology is so easily manipulatable.
Right.
that
Right.
it's like I have nothing to fear because they're not paying attention to me unless I want them to pay attention to me, and I can control the way in which that happens very easily.
Absolutely. Yeah, when Liz is at the grocery store wondering if people hate her, they're also wondering the same thing, so it's fine.
Oh, right.
Yeah, or they just don't care and they're not paying attention. Like they,
Yeah, more likely that.
the idea is so if I want them to pay attention, I get to decide the terms on which that is, and it's all about empowering yourself and taking control where you can. When you feel powerless in the situation, when I was first performing, a lot of it was me just hiding behind my guitar. It felt like I'm up here, and I've always been able to sing, and people have told me I can sing. I don't think of myself as much of a guitar player, but some people think I can do that too, which is weird.
Power chords, baby.
But oh no, I play all kinds of weird major sevenths and 13ths and stuff. But so much of it was I'm up there and I'm in constant panic and frustration mode, and the whole thing it kind of snowballed, and it's manifested in life within like my job, watching the change happen. Whereas I don't approach any discussion with my boss thinking, oh well, I might get fired today. It's look, if you don't want to hire me and keep me employed, that's your business. I'll figure something the fuck out. Which, changes how I'm going to react and deal with things. I'm not going to let people walk on me. Maybe that was a conscious decision. Maybe it was just something that happened over time. But I will point blank tell my boss to go fuck himself if I need to. Because
you hear that, boss? Watch yourself.
I've told him to his face. I literally looked at my boss and said, I'm not your child, so don't fucking talk to me that way. But that's not something that you can do unless you have internalized some type of self-worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Right on. Now, I had another question, but it left me because my wife is texting me about an air conditioner or some shit. But
if it makes you feel any better, my boss just texted or tried calling me, and I'm like, interview. Leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah, I just texted back interview as well. So, Nick, so you have a regular day job outside of the music and stuff, right? What do you do?
Unfortunately, we're working on changing that.
Yeah.
I can't go into great detail about exactly what I do. I work in the vending business.
Okay. Name the business and the address and the location, city, street, everything.
Yeah, no. Actually, I work out of a truck and work on on the road, so I don't actually spend a whole lot of time in an office or anything like that. Like I hop in a vehicle and I go drive from location to location, working on like jukeboxes, air pumps, things like that, arcade games.
Sure. Gotcha. So you're a drug dealer with a front, right?
I mean, whatever.
But I will say there are aspects of my business that probably help out those people. And I know that my boss is really trying to get these Bitcoin machines up and working.
Nice.
Which will specifically aid and abet those particular industries.
Yeah. So with all the 25 to 30 podcasts that you do, the music, 4 or 5 bands, and working a day job and having a kid and being married, how is the question?
Well, it's a lot of not thinking about it and just trying to do as much as possible. I will say I do juggle too much and stuff routinely falls to the wayside that I wish I'd have gotten done. And perhaps I don't put enough, like at this point, like with the podcasting, there's certain podcasts that I'm working on not doing. I want to shed them. Like they're things that need to exist, so I started them. But I also don't feel like I need to be the guy to do them. They just need to exist. So In particular, like This Week in Liberpods, which is a podcast dedicated to libertarian podcasts. And the idea was just, there's so many of us now that are out there, but we all get kind of locked into our own little groups. The impetus for that particular one was, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Friends Against Government podcast.
Yeah.
But they were a podcast for a year before I ever had any idea who they were. And it's like, we're way too small of a community, libertarians, to not know that there's a podcast running for a year. And it's not like it's a crappy podcast.
Yeah, it's like your favorite podcast
It's
now.
so funny. Like, these guys are just hilarious. So how does that go under the radar when we're not that big of a group?
Right.
And I think a lot of it is, with the algorithms and everything, we all get locked into very, very tight echo chambers, and we don't realize how many of us are out there. So I started the idea to just try and start introducing libertarians to new libertarian podcasts. And in particular, try to get them away from the more academic podcasts, which I find, sitting and arguing about philosophy is not way as important as arguing about Bigfoot or, music
I disagree.
or wine.
That building community thing, that's
The
important.
fact of the matter is, we all have our political ideas, but we're going to have to like each other and form communities kind of based around who we are as people when everything's said and done. So, I've got friends that do, libertarian movie reviews and friends that talk about wine. Sounds Like Liberty is where just talk to musicians and talk about music with libertarians. Because those are the things that we care about. And politics is just this thing that we have in common.
Yeah.
So it's good to know that we have that thing in common with people, but at the same time, it's really not the important part of who we are.
Yeah, not every show has to be a sermon about liberty. It's like a Christian art. Sometimes you just need art, and you can be a Christian while you're doing it as well.
Which I think is probably, I won't say it's the first episode. I think it might have been like the first episode of your show I listened to. Actually listening to your show, because I initially heard about you because Trey Weaver was on there, or Trey Ryan, whatever it is. And that's kind of how I got turned on to it. But like when I actually started listening to your show, it was definitely because I was interested in what a Christian had to say about Christian art, because let's just say it's always fascinated me. Even when I was Catholic, I'm like, well, those Christians over there and their weird crappy movies.
Right.
We're
getting there. We're getting there. It's fine. Kirk Cameron I feel like he's long gone, and I'm happy about that. He may be dead. We don't know. But God bless him. Liz, as far as liberty and all that stuff, were you into the politics and the libertarianism and that type of thing before Nick, or did he drag you into it?
I was completely apolitical, actually, up until probably getting into the podcast, because then I kind of...
You have an actual moment, Liz. Like, I was always an anarchist and didn't know libertarianism existed. You have a literal moment. What was the moment you said, okay, I'm officially an anarchist now?
Well, I started researching, just liberty and stuff and reading some of the books, but I was still kind of on the fence until I was reading this homeschool... What was it? An anarchist?
Roger
homeschooler?
Paxton's narrated a homeschool book and asked for people to review it for him.
Yeah, okay.
Nice.
And I'm like, well, I'm not going to, but here, Liz. You do
And
this.
I can read a book in like a day and a half and,
Yeah.
write a review in another, day. So I read it, and it was really interesting and persuasive as far as, the government is always going to involve force. There's no way to work around it.
She left for work at UPS. And then a normal person and comes back. Is like, I'm an anarchist now.
I think I'm an anarchist now. Like that just happened.
I read this book last night, and
I can't really argue with it. Like the logic is sound.
It only took one book. That's impressive.
Yeah.
usually
One
takes
book,
6
one day.
months with other people.
Right. Usually takes a lot more kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So how long ago was that you read this book that changed your life forever?
It was last year, I think.
Probably
Nice.
like 7 or 8 months ago, I
Yeah.
think.
Nice. And how long have you
In
guys been
general-
married?
In general, we're both pretty new to this. Like,
Okay.
Going on, this is 5 years.
yeah, you have a 5-year-old daughter. We got married months before she was born,
Right.
at her baby shower. It's
Yeah.
not that complicated,
I
Liz.
know.
5 years married, 7 years dating.
There
Nice.
you go.
Very cool. So, Nick, you said it's pretty new to you. Is it just like you were into anarchy and you didn't realize what the label actually was, or?
It's the way, I guess I have always been decidedly against against war. You know, that was always kind of a hot
Sure.
button thing for me. I became against school when I graduated college, I think, because I realized how snookered on that I was.
Yeah.
Like literally, I used to love reading in school and education when I was a kid, and that was all taken away from me by the school system. There was a video, I think, sometime around 2011, I think I saw with Ron Paul in it, and he was talking about like the education bubble, and I sent it to my parents, like not being able to explain, because I think they wanted more out of me.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I graduated college in 2006 into, the worst economy we've had in 100 years in America.
Yeah.
And I think that they had higher expectations of what I could do. I mean, it's not like I was a stupid kid. I did well on all my exams. I won't brag about my IQ, but it's girthy.
There you go. It's a horrible term.
I know, that's why I use that horrible term. But I tell people I've always been anarchist because at the end of the day, I've never liked authority. I've never saw any reason for anyone to control another person.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known what it was called, really. I mean, I kind of came up in a punk rock scene, so I always gravitated towards the kids that were less into authority when I was growing up. And then I kind of got into I kind of started exploring atheism at the same time I started exploring liberty, because I started listening to Penn's Sunday School, and I always thought he was an interesting guy.
Yeah.
And eventually I great out of that show because he's a milquetoast libertarian, and I don't care that much to listen to people be atheists.
I used to listen to it too, and I eventually just got bored.
It was
with
very repetitive, if nothing else.
It was. I listened to it for probably a year and a half, which is probably all that I needed to.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Penn's, he's a decent enough guy. It's a solid show, but it's.
He did sell his
past
vote
that.
to Hillary Clinton, but whatever.
Yeah, I know. Well, there's that whole thing. Yeah, and I think from there, like sort of at the same time, I discovered Big J Okerson.
Yeah.
And Big J Okerson got me to Dave Smith, and
There you
Dave
go.
Smith got me to Tom Woods, and it's
Nice.
just this cascading effect.
Nice.
And then before you know it, you're a Nazi. White
As it goes.
supremacist, all that.
Right.
Yep.
Really, really crappy white supremacist,
Right.
obviously.
Doing it wrong.
It's always one of the jokes about, I laugh at people because they'll talk about the Mises Caucus people within the Libertarian Party about as being like, oh, there's just a bunch of alt-right Nazis. And I'm like, well,
Whoops.
I mean, I'm bisexual in a fucking, multiracial marriage.
Yeah.
I'm really, really crappy white supremacist if that's the case.
Right.
So yeah, it's. I think I don't know that I would have cared as much about it if I didn't feel like we're in so many ways watching so much of civilization collapse around us. And not even someone cares so much about civilization. It's just, I guess, for me, like I can live in that vacuum. Other people find a vacuum difficult, perhaps. I guess for years I've always told people that money was the new god. And I don't think until libertarianism I really realized how that. I think it taught me the the mechanics of why that is the case in a way I didn't understand before. But at the end of the day, everyone's looking for their way to explain the world around them. Some people choose God, some people choose, whatever they choose, Allah. Most people anymore choose economics as their way to explain what's wrong there. They just don't understand economics, so it makes it less, literally, like that's the whole idea of Marxism, is explaining everything around you in the oppressor paradigm based on money. But if you don't understand how money works, that you get some really bad ideas doing that.
Yeah. This got dark real fast. So, introversion.
Hey guys, this is Dan's wife Kayla.
I just wanted to interrupt this podcast to let you know that he puts a lot of work into it for currently no monetary profit. And he has a family to feed. To do so, he runs his own media business called Goulash Media. Dan has a crazy creative brain that makes him uniquely able to take your project, whatever it may be, and make it the full package. So whether you're in need of graphic design, logos, branding, commercials, wedding videos, podcast jingles, music production, music videos, merchandise, websites, pictures, or what have you, contact Dan and he'll seriously make you look and sound awesome. For more information, just go to goulashmedia.net. That's goulash, Goulash, media.net, where Dan caters to the little guy with the big vision.
For you guys, moving forward, what are kind of like your plans as far as like your art and your podcasts and your mental health? Like how do you deal with those things?
Get more independent, I think, is the idea.
Yeah, I mean, our real life goal is I'd like to not have to go to a boss. I don't really care what I have to do to make that happen. I'd like to think that the changes that we've made in ourselves aren't really dependent on what we do. So there's that element of it. As far as the podcasts go, like, I think Sounds Like Liberty, even if it changes over time, the one thing it affords me is the ability to talk to interesting people about something I want to talk to. Like, even it doesn't make me any money currently. Like, sometimes I'll get like little trickles in of people giving me money to offset costs that go into making it.
Yeah.
But I also get to say I talked to Bob Murphy about the Beastie Boys and
Broadway
and Broadway musicals,
Right.
and that's a conversation that I would have never had an excuse to talk to
Right.
people about. You know, I've talked to a whole bunch of interesting people about music that just there's no reason for them to say, oh yeah, we can talk throughout the podcast.
And some of those people are still legitimately in a circle of friends. For you
No,
now.
absolutely. You know,
Cool.
I've met, people that I can't imagine my life without anymore through doing this.
Nice.
You know, I really like the whole podcasting community. My Free Markets Green Earth environmentalism podcast I do with my good buddy Pangy that I actually know through the Lions of Liberty podcast. And obviously I know you know Ben. But I wouldn't know Ben at all had it not been for being in the podcasting game.
Right.
And, he started, I think, probably about maybe quarter of a year ago, he started his podcast, Homesteads and Homeschools, after listening to podcasts like yours and mine.
Yeah.
So, I want, if nothing else, I want all of us within like this kind of community that we've created to be able to be more independent and grow what we do, but understand, understand what we really have at stake, perhaps. Because, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm not sure if you read the news yesterday and saw a whole lot of images disappeared off of every search engine on the planet yesterday.
I did not.
Oh, yeah. If you want to talk uncomfortable stuff, apparently every picture of Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein disappeared off the internet overnight last night.
Really? Go
And
figure.
DuckDuckGo, Google, doesn't matter what it is. As far as I
now
know,
you're
no
talking
one...
my language.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you want to talk conspiracies? We just watched one happen in real time. I remember at like 2 or 3 in the morning, I got a Facebook message. You can no longer find a single image of these two together, and they were readily available on Monday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
But
take a turn.
we're in an ideology that's under attack for sure. Like our good friends, the Lions of Liberty, just were demonetized on YouTube.
Right.
When what's their big claim to fame?
Liberty.
Helping be voices about probably the worst episodes they have are Odermatt's, where he's talking to people that were
Right.
incarcerated and dealing with life thereafter and while they were in.
Which that shouldn't be offensive to anybody. That's just life.
Right.
For those who don't know, I had to Facebook has my ID and a whole bunch of personal information on me because I had to register as a political actor for my music podcast because it has the word liberty in the title.
Oh, sweet.
At least if I wanted to do any type of advertising on Facebook's platform.
Yeah. I just don't. It's not worth it.
Well, there was other things that especially like the introvert musicians, the growth that I've been trying to work on that was a lot of it's been through Facebook advertising.
Sure.
Because let's just say introverts aren't exactly going out looking for things. You kind of need to put yourself in front of them.
Right.
Yeah.
So the whole thing, it's just understanding what the game really is. And like people joke about, you can't, every libertarian has a podcast. And I'm like, good.
Mm-hmm.
I hope all of us have podcasts. I hope more of us have podcasts. I hope they spread like a plague, bringing in normies left
if
and
every
right.
libertarian has one listener, then that's at least one listener that is hearing
There
the
you go.
message. So
Yeah. and I think it's a message that's more important than ever because we look at what's going on over in Europe and like the way that you look at what's going on in China, you look at what's going on literally every other place in the world,
Right.
and I'm just sitting here thinking, well, if you guys like all this socialization, all this socialism, and you like all of this monitoring by your government, then by all means, go over there where it's happening, and you can have your culture and I can have mine. Like in the immigration debate, everyone you'll have the right wing that'll complain, oh well, they're coming over here and the voting's they're changing our country. But nobody ever talks about the fact that really what's happening within our country is the upper class elites moving from state to state, changing the politics of each state from red to blue, and then moving out of that state. While they do that, they don't take their politics with them because once the politics are entrenched and you have the lower class elements of society reliant on those politics, it never changes. And so a far bigger threat politically to our country is wealthy elites moving from, New York to Florida or California to Texas, and you're going to watch these places slowly, one by one. There's not going to be any more red states because all the politics are going to get changed by the wealthy people that live there and move on. I think you watched it happen up in all of the Massachusetts people that destroyed Massachusetts are now moving down to New Hampshire, causing a problem for the Free Staters. Like it's something that no Mexican is that intent on changing our voting bloc. Ultimately, if the Republicans would just deal with them in a normal way, they'd probably just be good Republicans. They're all Christian-based people.
yeah.
Like conservatism is pretty common amongst them. But when you fight them, you create an enemy that doesn't need to be an enemy. Whereas we all know the wealthy elites are an enemy of freedom everywhere.
Nick, you have a way of taking a perfectly, mundane question and spiraling it into dark
Taking it
places.
down there. There you go.
Well,
Like,
That's
so
how-
how
just
do
for
you
the record,
feel
it's
about
probably-
flowers? Well, the state hates you, and you're all going to die someday.
just for the record, I live in this mess. Perhaps there's a reason I'm an introvert.
There you go.
Nick, how are you feeling mentally these days?
It's a whole lot of... Well, I haven't wanted to kill myself in a couple years.
Well, that's good. That's good.
I often... it probably has more to do with, just the fear of the dark than anything. Name dropping.
Is it a Dio song?
No, Dio. It's Iron Maiden.
Oh, my bad.
I wouldn't know either. It's fine. So for me, when it comes to, I'm gonna just. I like everything you just said, and I'm going to completely take it in another direction back to a happy place.
Go for it.
For me, when it comes to like art and introversion and stuff like that, for podcasting, like I did the music stuff for years, still do, and everything, and that I always have a problem. I always have these great ideas, and I start things, and I have this big problem of finishing and saying something's done. And the podcast has helped me make deadlines. If you have to say, "Hey, I'm going to do a creative thing, and it has to come out next week," so do it, and then it's good enough, and put it out. So that's helped me in the creative my other creative outlets like music and drawing and stuff like that. Have you guys found any similarities in your story?
I mean, it is very useful to have that. I got to put an episode out this
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
Because I fully understand. Essentially, when it comes to music and putting out records, it's always been, I guess it's done when I'm tired of listening to it. I'm never
Right.
going to like it. So just
Once I hate it
take
completely, everybody else might like it.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, I'm so sick of listening to this thing, and it's never going to be what I want it to be. Just take it. I'm done with it.
It's yours. I don't want it anymore.
Pretty much. Like, by the time I release it, I can tell people, honestly, I do not listen to my own music because by the time it gets to that point, I just do not like it anymore. There might be like one or two songs.
Here we go.
that
We're
I
going
kind
dark.
of
Going dark.
really
We're
like.
getting there.
Well, and I'm like the biggest fangirl as far as Nick's music is concerned, so it does work out well for that. Because it was an outlet that he could kind of put some of that stuff out there that was otherwise just gonna like sit
Yeah.
back
Are
in
you,
the
are
ether.
you a fan of Mother Mother?
Not familiar.
It's a great Canadian band, and part of why I love them, because if you listen to them, they are like some of the happiest.
Sounding,
Oh yes, some of the happiest sounding music in
and
the
the
world.
lyrics are so dark.
That's awesome.
So incredibly dark. Like they have a song called Wrecking Ball, and if you listen to it, it's all 3-part bluegrass vocal harmony, and like there's some banjo with some electronic elements, and it's just blah, 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 to listen to it. And if you pay attention to the lyrics, it opens up with "I made a wreck out of my hand, I put it through the wall. I made a fist and not a plan. Call me a reckless wrecking ball."
It just kind of goes on.
Like, and it for so much of even like what I've done musically, it's been about packaging, perhaps the darkness up in something that's more palatable.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think there is a thread of that. Like, while I sound like I'm a super dark person, and that's just how I interact in the world, I'm really not. Like, I see a lot of trouble and a lot of problems out there, but I don't think that it's anything that can't be surmounted. And I see a lot of hope in the world out there. Like, while they are attacking and unpersoning the relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton,
Yeah.
there's torrent sites out there. It's gonna get out. Like
Right.
the genie's been let out of the bottle, and the fact of the matter is they can't take away all of our podcasts.
Right.
Because the minute they do, somebody else is going to create an app. And yeah, it may be a pain in the butt to move, but we'll always find a way. And ultimately, we are growing. We're not shrinking. Perhaps I think the big thing why people think we're not what we were like in the Ron Paul days has a lot more to do with the fact that I think most of us have given up on the political realm. And so we're all out there just trying to go and forge our own world separate from everyone else. Like I tell people, my friend Jay over at Anarcho Inc., one of the things like I want to see people do is I would just like to pull out of the economy as much as possible and just have our own economy. Like we can trade in Bitcoin, and you guys can have your crappy fiat money over there and just whatever. So the more we can take the tools at our disposal to just not have to deal with those things, the better off we are, I think.
Do you remember what the question was?
I'm going to be honest, not at all.
Can already tell you, no, he does not.
It's all good. It's all good. So
I feel like
we'll
I
just
answered it in there somewhere, but
we'll just remain in this darkness with you then, I suppose. So with this whole the censorship and proving that they have the ability to wipe things out of history completely on the entire internet, I mean, do you have any concerns as far as like the message of individualism and all that stuff? Do you have any concerns of people like, I mean, they're shutting down like lines of liberty and stuff like that, like very, I'd say mundane,
Middle of the road
yes,
plant stuff.
not offensive stuff, but what is apparently controversial enough for you to get demonetized. They could completely wipe lines of liberty off the face of the earth if they wanted to, apparently.
I don't. Well, I mean, you say that, but Alex Jones still has InfoWars operating.
It's true.
Perhaps
It's
at
true.
partial capacity, but
But if they can take pictures of Bill Clinton off of every platform, then why couldn't they take Alex Jones if they wanted to completely
well, but that's
off
the
the
thing.
internet?
Like we're talking about that right now. In that, yeah. So last night that happened. I believe those pictures still exist on computers out there.
Right.
I'm sure that those are going to be, on BitTorrents immediately, and being exchanged in peer-to-peer ways. what I do like the thing that it perhaps is frustrating is seeing the lack of care that a lot of people have, like watching the ultra left and the far right fight each other in the streets essentially, and not like, seeing them understand what they're doing is perhaps frustrating. But in the same vein, I don't think that we have to necessarily participate in that.
Yeah.
So,
Liz,
what are you looking at?
Any
I know.
thoughts?
I'm just thinking that, there are a lot of people that I know in real life that they aren't part of that whole fight. Like, there's a lot of crap being passed back and forth on Facebook, and there's feuds and, all this stuff. But when you're off the internet, I feel like people are a lot more reasonable. And if you can get those conversations going.
Just not in Portland.
They go in better directions. So there is a certain amount of, they can control what we see, through the media, but I think there are always going to be avenues that people can connect. And if we actually get better at connecting with each other, then, I think we can still progress as communities, even with all that.
I mean, I think the thing that scares me most, honestly, isn't the way that people's minds are changing. It's the way in which they're doing it. The thing that I've been preaching since the beginning that is most frustrating about this is not that they're deplatforming people. It's that they're doing it so slow, and that slow roll is 100% on purpose. Because with that slow roll, if they came out, 2 years ago, or when they deplatformed Alex Jones, they deplatformed everybody else. If Lions of Liberty had went then, or let's take it even further back. Let's go back to when what is it there? Liberty memes, when that whole thing went down, and that first wave of getting rid of libertarians on Facebook.
Right.
Had Alex Jones went at that same moment, and perhaps what's his name, Steven Crowder, we would have alternatives already. Like we would have technology there. People would have started companies. We would have a separate system.
Yeah.
But the thing that they've been insidious about is they haven't done it that way, and so it's that slow creep. It's that frog in the kettle, and nobody pays attention because it is happening so slow. And so nobody ever takes it upon themselves because the market's not growing fast enough for them to justify it. If there was suddenly that market overnight, somebody would have met market demand.
Right.
And that's the thing that's the most frustrating about it. It's not that it's happening, it's the way that it's being manipulated so very, very specifically as to not trigger the things in your brain that would notice it.
Right.
Like, obviously, we're deeply tied into this stuff, and we notice it. Normies don't. Had it all been one big fell swoop and hundreds of thousands of people got kicked off of Facebook overnight, there's no way even they can ignore it. And so those conservatives that are on the fence, pretending that, that government involvement is the answer to it, I don't think that they would have had that same feeling if it was done that way.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because it's like the normies, they hear, oh, Alex Jones got deplatformed. Well, he's just that crazy conspiracy guy that thinks that Sandy Hook never happened. Oh, Milo Yiannopoulos got deplatformed. Oh, he's just that pedophile guy or pedophile sympathizer or whatever. Like, I don't know anything about him, but I'll just assume that. And then Steven Crowder gets deplatformed. Like, it's a slow progression. They're like, oh, he hates gays. Like, there's always just this, like, really... for the regular layperson that doesn't dig into this stuff on a regular basis, they just know this tiny little fraction of what the media says about the people, and that's enough for them to be like, oh, well, there must be a good reason for them to be deplatformed, and then it slowly works its way up, and you have eventually, much more uncontroversial people like Lions of Liberty just will fade away, and people won't care.
But the
sorry,
thing is that,
Lions of Liberty guys. I'm not meaning to call for your death. I mean, I feel like I should go long before you should, but I don't have as big of an audience. We talk about much more controversial things, though.
Well, I mean, to me, it's interesting to watch because I mean, I love Lions of Liberty, but as far as like, they're pretty benign conversations. Like,
Sure.
The fact that the email that they got to look at it, I'm just like, clearly no one listened to this for real.
Right.
Because there's so non-controversial stuff. Like you're literally on your podcast, you're talking about the entirety of human history being a lie sometimes. And
just facts,
He's
man.
like, yep, I'll own that. Yep,
it's been some interesting episodes.
no doubt.
I will
what I go
say
for.
that the Nephilim episode was definitely.
That one, he literally called me up. He's like, you should listen to this because this is amazing.
I don't believe any of it, but it is totally
You don't have to.
interesting.
Doesn't
Yep.
make it not true. It doesn't make it
Nope.
more true.
And I think so much of that is. But what I was getting at was, so even with all these things happening, Alex Jones can still do InfoWars. Laura Loomer still gets speaking engagements. They make it harder for us, but technology progresses faster than they can make it not possible. So ultimately, all they're doing is slowing down something that's going to happen anyways. Like, that's one of the big things. Like, for me, secession is the big thing. We all just need to just go our own ways. Like, pretending that millions upon millions of people can coexist
Right.
and have all the same views is just ludicrous on its face. So
Segregation is what you're calling for, Nick.
if you want to segregate, sure, go for it. I'm not one to stop you. Clearly, some
Title of the
people think that's a
episode:
better
Nick
solution.
Pecone calls
There
for
you go.
segregation with his black wife.
But ideas, though, I
I-
think, you can
Just for the record, I've said far
sort
worse
yourselves
than that.
by ideas, I think is probably the more reasonable
Like-
way of doing that.
He jokes about segregation, and I'm thinking like, that's not going to get my ire up, bro.
Right.
I'm sure I've said far more insane things on the
You
internet.
say all sorts of insane things.
I say things just to say insane things
I know you
sometimes
do.
and see what people say.
You should. And you shouldn't be deplatformed because of it.
There you go.
So, I mean, I feel like we're way off topic, but any final thoughts for the introverted musician and artists who are trying to find their voice in music and that type of thing coming up?
Oh, I mean, if it's something you want to do, the biggest thing I will say is it's a numbers game. You have to, like, in your head, you have to build up the number of positive experiences greater than the number of negative experiences. And a lot, when you're first starting out, if you haven't performed a lot, you're inputting bad data because your experiences are just visions of what it might be like. It's all of the horrible performances that you think you're going to have, with no realistic performances to offset it.
It's standing
you
at the
go up-
cash register assuming that the cashier hates you.
Right.
Exactly, it's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Great analogy, Liz. So if you go out and you start building those positive experiences, eventually they just outweigh the bad experiences. That's why that was the key insight from watching what happened with Liz. It was just eventually she'd had more positive conversations with people than imagined conversations with people that went poorly.
Right.
Like you just, well, I've done this enough times. Like I know how this works. Like it's, and to me, so much of performance is that exact same thing. Eventually, you go up in front of enough people, and like I play some very, very busy bars on Friday nights, and let's just say I'm a weird guy, and these are the most normie of normie places that
Sure.
you could possibly imagine playing, and I do fine. Like I pay attention to what they want, but at the end of the day, it's having that experience of having, oh wow, they didn't lynch me, like they don't see the blackness in my soul and are
Right.
going to run me out of town on a rail.
Yeah. It's funny
So-
because a lot of the, like, you think like, oh, I'm too weird to play in like this biker bar or this, normie bar or whatever, but it's like those are the people who listen to like Disturbed and Mudvayne and stuff like that. Like those
Right.
people that they're listening to, they're pretty weird on their own, even if their music blends into the background of the bar very nicely.
Well, and so much of it is realizing and understanding that everyone out there is just their own bundle of weirdness. And
Yeah.
perhaps maybe they're not as weird as I am, but their motivations are sure as hell all the same. They're out there concerned about all the same stuff. Even if they're not as weird as I am, they still think they are.
Yeah.
So all you want to do is you want to go out and you want to try and connect with people and have, real connections. And it's not as hard as you think it is. But a lot of it is, it's just doing it over and over again. With anything, you don't, until you exercise it, you don't you don't get good at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that kind of answered that question.
Yeah.
I
Close
tend to
enough.
ramble.
Close enough. It's all good. For me personally, I enjoy jumping from topic to topic, but I try to rein it in for the less ADD listeners. I think we have one or two of them. But Liz, can you weigh in on Nick's mental state and his obsession with drawing everything to the darkness?
I honestly, that's why I keep him around. Like, he tries to handle that end. I try and look on the bright side of things, and like together we can kind of cover all the bases.
Now, coincidentally, she's probably the one that is more depressed out of both of us in a real way.
Well, because I'm an idealist, so even though I look on the bright side, I see things as like they should be so much better than they are.
Sure.
So in general, he's actually more satisfied with life probably because he's expecting the absolute worst and he gets life. So, everything's gravy in his world.
Yeah, no, everything's always positive. It's never as bad as I expected it to be.
Whereas I'm like, no, this should be like magical rainbows and butterflies, and it's just life. What?
What was it? We had a conversation once that was always entertaining to me, and it was...
Oh, because I looked up this article, and there's like the idealists, and there's like the survivors, and there are these people. They basically make a decision, they go with it. It suffices, the end. And they are generally more satisfied with the people who look at all the information, try to find the ideal plan, finally go with something, and they're just dissatisfied, less satisfied, because,
no decision you make will ever be good enough, and
Right.
I'm okay with any decision
it's never
I make.
going to be the perfect choice.
And it was interesting to think, like, yeah, we definitely carry those
Yes,
characteristics with
exactly.
us. So she'll sit there and think.
I will
about,
research for 3 weeks, make a decision, and still kind of feel a little iffy about it. And
was it
he'll
the
just
right
go like, yep,
decision? Whatever decision I made was the right decision because
Yeah.
it's what I did.
yep.
I can't change it, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because going into this, I was like, oh, they're both kind of introverted, and usually opposites attract. So that's kind of. But you guys, you're a beautiful
are
yin and yang.
opposites?
You're a beautiful yin and yang on the outside and on the inside. So it works
There you
out
go.
nicely.
We're just odd people.
Yes.
Yep, it's all good.
Differently odd, but odd.
I like it. So tell everybody where they can find out all the information about you guys, all the millions and millions of things that you do.
Well, the easiest place to go to see most of everything would be nickpecone.com for all the stuff that I do. It's a weird page. If you're interested in, most of what you talked about today, you can go to theintrovertmusician.com and it'll have information on that. Our podcast we do Sounds Like Liberty. You can find it at soundslike.liberty.com. I also do, you can go to liberpods.com, find out about libertarian podcasts. And if you're one of those weird people that wants to save the environment but be a capitalist at the same time, freemarketsgreenearth.com is
There you
another place
go.
you can go. We didn't talk about that one at all, but I'm sitting here raging about all this, thinking about we're fucking Mother Nature up. And the lefties are going to ruin it worse.
Yep. I just asked you where to find your stuff, and you're still dragging it down. Lizzie, take us out on a high note.
Wait, you're the guy that listens to Alex Jones, and I'm the lunatic.
I don't listen to
I
Alex
was
Jones.
just gonna say thanks for having us on the show because I listening to your show, I always thought you were like our kind of weird, awkward person. So
Sure.
I was excited to get a chance to
That
hang
was
out with
Lizzie's-
more weird, awkward people.
Lizzie's big complaint after Pork Fest is like, I really wish we got more time to hang out with Dan.
Yeah.
He seems weird. Yay.
I'm like, I think he had that camera thing he needed to do.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
taking it personally.
Being an introvert, it often helps because I can have an excuse not to talk to people. I'm like, I got to go film something, or don't film me because I'm behind the camera and that type of thing. But
I had a blast. It was super fun getting to meet all of the
They
Line
were
Celebrity guys.
super cool
Absolutely.
guys. If you ever get a chance, Pork Fest, it's a blast.
Howie is
Yeah.
my people. That's all I know.
This is true.
Anytime Howie wants to go and crush beers and
except
and
he
just
hates
run
he hates
amok.
bike riders though. So
Oh,
I haven't even listened back to that. I saw commentary on it. I'm like, what did I say? I don't even remember. I'm sure I was ranting.
Yep.
usually how that goes.
I think that was my favorite thing. It's like we would just have so much fun ranting and yelling
Yeah.
at each other drunk for an hour.
You should make it a show. I mean, just throw it on the pile of shows that you have. It's fine.
There you go.
We have talked to Howie on the show once. I hadn't
Nice.
met him before that. I think it would be a different conversation now. 'Cause
Yeah,
I probably
very
would.
much.
I would escalate that feeling within
Right.
him.
Yeah, it was
And-
definitely nice finding out that these people are actually real people in real life. And all the people there I'd never met in person, but would have not known them in any capacity if not for podcasting. So go podcasting.
I mean, had I
Yeah.
met Brian McWilliams or Jason Stapleton in real life, I definitely wouldn't have talked to him. I'd been, look at these fucking assholes.
Pretty much,
But
yeah.
God damn it, they're
And now
tall.
I still feel the same way. I wish I hadn't have talked to him.
I won't go quite that far, but you know.
No, they're very cool.
Does your daughter have a question?
Irma, do you have a question?
No, she just loves being on camera in general. She wants to have her own YouTube channel at some point.
Awesome. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Which I am going to, any way I can get her making money
Yeah,
as
monetize
quickly as
that.
possible.
Absolutely.
Like learn how to keep your own kid because daddy's
right.
terrible at it.
Yeah. My kids have got lemonade stands and all sorts of fun endeavors. So
Nice.
Nice.
raise them right. Anyway,
Yeah.
another topic for another day. But Liz and Nick, thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank
and
you.
it was a blast, and I look forward to doing it again in the future.
Sorry, it was too ADD for the awkward podcast guy.
You're never too ADD for me, I guarantee. But it's a fun punchline that Nick brings everything into a dark place. You seem like
There you
such a fun guy on the surface, but deep down, once you peel back the layers, you realize
And there you don't have to peel back that many layers. Apparently, it's just right
just
in
have
right
to ask
there.
a happy question, and the layers are gone. The blackness comes
Oh
out.
wait, what did you think this was? It's been a lot of fun, man. We gotta get you back on Sounds Like Liberty, by the way.
Absolutely, anytime, just hit me up.
Absolutely will.
Yay.
All right, we'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.
Take it easy, Dan.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Nick and Lizzie Pecone. Two very, very fun people to chat with, and I look forward to doing it again in the future. As was mentioned in the episode, I have been on their show back before we knew really anything about each other. I haven't gone back and listened to that episode. It might be awkward because we didn't know each other and we're all three introverted weirdos. But I enjoyed going on there, and I look forward to doing it again. They have a great podcast over there. Check it out. Sounds Like Liberty and Introvert Musician. And yeah, I also actually got to meet them in person at PorkFest. I think that we mentioned that in the episode. I don't quite recall. But yeah, I got to meet them in real life. I can confirm that they are indeed real people and real cool people. So check them out. Check out all their stuff and keep an eye on them for fun, introvert music and all sorts of weird shit. So there's that. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. What else do we got going on? Working on a documentary. If you haven't heard, The Moon, the Myth, the Legend is what it's called. You can support it on Indiegogo right now and help it get going. Every time somebody drops $1 in that bucket, it fuels me to do more. Not that I wasn't fueled to make it happen before, but you know, it's a new process for me. It's kind of been a slow roll. But I'm really liking where it's going, and I look forward to being able to share it with you guys. But every time somebody's like, hey, I like what you're talking about, I want to support this just based on a little bit of knowledge that I have, that lights a little bit more of a fire into my ass to get going even harder on it. So consider checking out The Moon, the Myth, the Legend, Lunar Lore for Humble Dummies. It is my first documentary talking about the moon landing, why some people think it was a hoax, why some people think it wasn't, and why the people that think it wasn't think that the first category is a bunch of retards. So check it out. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be lighthearted, just deep dive into the moon landing stuff. And it is when this comes out, it'll be, how close to the moon landing anniversary will it be? It'll be 2 days before the anniversary of the moon landing. So yeah, definitely check that out. I'm kind of holding off on a couple developments because I want to see what they release around the anniversary, because I'm sure they'll have something. But check it out at Indiegogo. You can find all the links to the trailer and the artwork and all that stuff very easily just by going to moonmythlegend.com. All right, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, consider joining the Downers Club, supporting the show, and getting bonus episodes of the show every single week. Patreon.com/The System Is Down. You can sign up for as little as $5 a month. And I'm surprised I haven't mentioned it before now, but I'm at camp right now. I'm at camp. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that every year I serve at Royal Family Kids Camp, which is a camp for abused and neglected foster children, taking care of the orphans in a real way. And it is very, very fun time, giving the kids hope, giving them something to live for, so letting them know that there are adults and humans out there that care about them and want to take care of them and love them. And lots of fun stuff going on there. I did an episode a few months back with Wendy Bazat. She is the director for our camp. So if you want more information on that, go check it out. But that's where I am right now. So if you don't hear anything from me in the forum this week, that is why. Because I am gone and I do not have access to my phone more than like about an hour a day. And during that time, I'm probably not going to spend it on Facebook. So check out that episode way back when. I don't remember what number it is, but yeah, lots of fun stuff that I'm doing right now. Probably busting my ass in the heat for foster kids. So probably talk about that next week a little bit, or maybe in a bonus episode or something to that effect. I'm sure I'll have lots to tell after this week. What else? Oh, speaking of the forum, you can join the System Is Down forum for absolutely free right now by going to Facebook and typing in the System Is Down forum, asking to join, and I'll let you right in there if you look like a human. Get in there. It's where all these people, Nick and Lizzie, are both in there. A lot of our guests that we have on the show are a part of the forum. So if you have direct questions for them, if you want to be a part of the conversation in real time, go join the Systems Down forum. You can also find it by going to tsidpod.com/forum. There's that. And go like, share, subscribe on all the platforms. You know what they are. Wherever you can find us, wherever you socially network, we're probably there. And if we're not there, let me know. Just drop me a line, dan@tsidpod.com. Let me know if there's a platform that you want us on that we're not on. Let me know if you have any ideas for guests on the show or topics that you want discussed, anything uncomfortable, anything and everything dealing with conspiracies, politics, religion, culture, all the different things that make people uncomfortable. Let me know at dan@tsidpod.com. All right, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for listening today. Go out and spread the message of having uncomfortable conversations, uncomfortable dialogue, talking about the things that are typically shunned from, the Thanksgiving dinner table, family conversations, things that make people scream and yell at each other on Facebook. We're here to talk about those things, and we're here to do so civilly and change the world one uncomfortable conversation at a time, because we're living in a day where dialogue is dead. The art of conversation is dead. Dead. It's dead. It's clearly dead. If you go on Facebook, outside of the TSID forum, in my opinion, it's all just, hey, I thought about a thing. Fuck you, you're a piece of shit. Like, that's the world we live in now. Because we can all hide behind avatars and such things. And I want to bring back the art of conversation, the art of talking to people face to face as closely as we can with Zoom and Skype and stuff like that. And just show that you can talk about these things. You can talk about politics. You can talk about conspiracies. You can disagree on things and treat each other like humans, because we all are trying to figure this shit out together. So that's my point. That's my goal with this whole thing. Just exploring the world together and doing so humbly with an open mind and hearing people out. So if you like it, do it. Do it yourself. You don't have to necessarily start a podcast. If you want to, go for it. But you don't have to start a podcast. Just talk to somebody about, these things. And when it seems like it's getting heated, bring it down a notch and just listen, because you are probably wrong. They're probably wrong. You're probably wrong too, because we're all humans and we're all trying to figure out what is together. So let's do that. All right, that's my soapbox for the evening, or the morning. It's evening right now. I'm recording this in advance. You know how this works. But again, thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate and love you all very much. If you'll have me, please tune in next week. I believe next week. I know I said it a couple weeks ago, but some things came up and scheduling stuff. But I believe next week is going to be talking to Jeremy Kaufman of Library, which, in my opinion, could be the one to take down YouTube, because it is open platform, it is blockchain based, it is user. It's a tube for you, not a tube for the man. So check that out next week. I'm pretty sure that's going to be the ones coming out. So great conversation. And yeah, until then, question everything, stay uncomfortable, and I'll talk to you then. Thanks.
This has been a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.